The Red House. There's a house in the woods just outside of my hometown, a house that everyone knows, but no one dares to speak of. It's old, red, and tucked away deep in the forest, almost as if the trees have grown around it to keep it hidden. Locals call it the Red House, and they say it's cursed. Growing up, my friends and I used to scare each other with stories about the Red House. We'd gather around a campfire, daring one another to go there, but no one ever did. The legends were enough to keep us away, tales of people who ventured inside and were never seen again, stories of ghostly figures in the windows, and whispers of something evil lurking within its walls. As I grew older, I dismissed the stories as just that, stories. But a part of me was always curious. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to the house, something that the townsfolk were too afraid to uncover. So, one summer, when I was home from college, I decided to see the Red House for myself. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning. I didn't want to hear their warnings, their pleas to stay away. I had to do this on my own. The day I chose was hot and humid, the kind of day where the air feels thick and oppressive. I packed a bag with a flashlight, a bottle of water, and my phone, and set off into the woods. The path to the Red House wasn't marked, but I had heard enough about it over the years to know where to go. The deeper I went into the forest, the quieter it became. The usual sounds of birds chirping and leaves rustling faded away, replaced by an unsettling silence that seemed to press in on me from all sides. After what felt like hours of walking, I finally saw it through the trees, the Red House. It was just as I had imagined it, yet somehow more menacing. The paint was faded and peeling, revealing the weathered wood underneath. The windows were dark and empty, like the hollow eyes of a skull. The roof sagged, and the front porch looked ready to collapse under its own weight. I stood there for a long time, just staring at it, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. This was it, the place that had haunted my childhood nightmares, the source of all those ghost stories. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and walked towards the front door. The wooden steps creaked ominously under my weight as I climbed onto the porch. The door was old and weathered, its paint chipped and cracked. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob, before finally turning it. The door swung open with a groan, revealing the darkness inside. I stepped over the threshold, my heart pounding in my chest. The air inside was cool and musty, filled with the scent of rot and decay. Dust particles danced in the beam of my flashlight as I swept it across the room. The interior was just as dilapidated as the outside, old furniture covered in sheets, peeling wallpaper, and broken floorboards. I moved cautiously, my footsteps echoing in the silence. The house was eerily still, as if it had been frozen in time. But there was something off, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was like the air itself was heavy, thick with an unseen presence. I explored the first floor, finding nothing but empty rooms and broken furniture. There was a staircase leading to the second floor, its steps warped and splintered. I hesitated for a moment, then started to climb. The stairs creaked and groaned under my weight, but they held. At the top of the stairs, I found a long hallway lined with doors. Most were closed, but one at the far end was slightly ajar. I felt a chill run down my spine as I approached it, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The door creaked as I pushed it open, revealing a small bedroom. The room was empty, save for an old bed frame and a cracked mirror on the wall. But something about it felt wrong, like I wasn't supposed to be there. I stepped inside, my eyes drawn to the mirror. It was covered in a layer of dust, but I could still see my reflection, or at least, I thought it was my reflection. There was something off about it, something that made my skin crawl. The figure in the mirror looked like me, but there was a shadow behind it, a dark shape that shouldn't have been there. I blinked, and the shadow was gone, leaving only my reflection staring back at me with wide, terrified eyes. I turned away from the mirror, my heart racing. The air in the room felt even heavier now, pressing down on me like a weight. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of this house. But as I turned to go, I heard it, a soft, whispering voice. "Help me!" The sound was faint, almost inaudible, but it sent a jolt of fear through me. I spun around, shining my flashlight in every corner of the room, but there was no one there. The voice came again, louder this time, more desperate. "Help me, please!" It was coming from the closet. The door was closed, but I could see a faint light seeping through the cracks. My hand shook as I reached for the doorknob, every instinct screaming at me to turn and run. But I couldn't. Something compelled me to open the door, to see what was inside. The closet was small and empty, except for a small trapdoor in the floor. The light was coming from beneath it, a faint, flickering glow. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the latch. The voice came again, pleading, desperate. "Help me!" I opened the trapdoor. A narrow staircase led down into darkness, the light flickering at the bottom. The air that wafted up was cold and damp, carrying with it the smell of earth and something else, something metallic and sharp, like blood. I wanted to run, to leave that house and never look back. But I couldn't. Something compelled me to go down those stairs, to find the source of that voice. I descended slowly, my flashlight barely piercing the darkness. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a small, dirt-floored cellar. The walls were made of rough stone, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth. In the center of the room was a small wooden chair, and on it sat a woman. Her hair was long and matted, her clothes torn and dirty. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were hollow, empty sockets that seemed to stare right through me. She opened her mouth, and the same whispering voice I had heard before filled the room. "Help me!" I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't possible. She couldn't be real. But she was. She reached out a bony hand, her fingers trembling. "Please, help me!" I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, paralyzed by fear. The woman's voice grew louder, more insistent. "You have to help me! You have to free me!" Finally, I found my voice. "How? How can I help you?" Her hollow eyes seemed to lock onto mine, and for a moment, I thought I saw something in them, an emotion, a flicker of hope. "The house, it won't let me go. You have to destroy it. You have to burn it down." Her words sent a chill down my spine. Burn the house down? It sounded insane, but looking at her, at the desperation in her voice, I knew she was telling the truth. This house wasn't just a building, it was a prison, and she was its prisoner. I nodded slowly. "I'll do it. I'll burn it down." The woman's face softened, and for the briefest of moments, I saw a flicker of relief in her expression. But then, the cellar was plunged into darkness. My flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in complete blackness. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for my phone, trying to use its light. But before I could turn it on, I felt something cold and wet wrap around my ankle. I screamed, kicking out, but it only tightened its grip, pulling me down to the ground. I thrashed and fought, but it was no use. The thing dragged me across the dirt floor, towards the far wall of the cellar. I could hear the woman's voice, faint and distant, as if coming from far away. "Don't let it take you, you have to destroy the house." I clawed at the floor, trying to find something to hold on to, but the ground was slick with mud and blood. I was pulled through the wall, no, through the earth itself, as if it had opened up to swallow me whole. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. I was lying on my back in a small, dark tunnel, the air thick with the smell of decay. I could hear something moving in the darkness, something wet and slithering. I scrambled to my feet, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my phone. The light flickered on, revealing the tunnel around me. The walls were slick with something dark and wet, and the floor was covered in bones, human bones. My stomach churned as I realized what they were. I had to get out of there, had to escape before whatever had dragged me down here came back. I turned and ran, the light from my phone bobbing wildly as I sprinted down.